made a very good decision to not shorten Fraser Avenue down to one lane. I guess narrow it down to one lane and put in bike lanes on Fraser Avenue. Now, if you're not familiar with Fraser Avenue, you can be forgiven. But Fraser Avenue is sort of like the main drag, the main strip on North Shore. So putting it down to one lane and having bike lanes is really kind of a poor idea. Now, there are remedies to the whole, bicycles in Chattanooga thing, such as, make it legal for them to ride on the sidewalk. That could be a solution. For some reason, they won't do that. I'm not sure why. But Chattanooga is not set up to be a cyclist city. Here's the thing with Chattanooga, right? And I'm not knocking Chattanooga at all. I'm born and raised, well, technically born, but not really raised. I was born in Erlanger Hospital, right? And my dad works there. I live in North Georgia, Ringgold to be exact. So I'm not exactly an outsider by any stretch of the imagination. I spend a lot of time on North Shore. I love it there. It's really one of the best places in the world, I would say. It's just a cool place to hang out. There's good coffee. There's good beer. There's all sorts of good things on North Shore. There's Coolidge Park where you can hang out and chill out, and it's just a good place. But here's the thing about Chattanooga, and here's the thing about what the mayor's trying to do and what the city council fortunately decided not to do. They're trying to make it really appealing to young hipster kids, and there's a lot of merit to doing that. I'm not knocking that methodology either. There's a lot of merit to marketing your city to younger people. But the thing with Chattanooga is that it really kind of already markets itself to younger people. It seems like no matter what the city council would do, young people would still come here because it's industry and it's business and it's other people that are driving people to Chattanooga, not what the city does. And I think that that's a big misconception. And of course, Andy Burke is a Democrat, so he's going to be a little bit more liberal leaning than I would be. So he's going to see it almost as the duty of the city, I'm sure, to build infrastructure that will attract growth. And I understand that, but I don't necessarily agree with it. I understand his mindset, and I think Andy Burke is a horrible person for doing it? No, I just think he's wrong. But the thing with the whole bike lanes thing is it makes everyone mad, it seems like. And the funny thing is, the really funny thing is, I saw somebody posting on Facebook after, I think it was Channel 9. Yeah, I follow them. I'm no shame. I follow them on Facebook. And somebody on Channel 9 posted, hey, what do you think about the bike lane thing? And everyone's commenting all up in arms about how bad it is. And I was agreeing with them. And then there's like one guy who is a cyclist. There's like one guy who posts a picture of like 3 or 4 people on the bike lane saying, see, people do use the bike lanes. All you naysayers who say you never see any people on the bike lanes, you're either blind or deluded. Look, here's 3 people on the bike lanes. And I'm not sure if 3 or 4 people or even 100 people a day on the bike lanes really justifies the annoyance that it causes to drivers, because they're really annoying to drivers. You might say, well, look, people use them though. Well, yeah, people might use them, but listen, people in cars are more important than people on bikes. And I don't mean their lives are more important. I mean, what they are doing is most likely more important. Cycling is a recreational thing, and it's also used sometimes to get from place to place, from your home to your business. But 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you, the people who are cycling downtown are cycling downtown recreationally. They probably drove there with their cars, unloaded their bikes, and started cycling around. And that's fine, but do we need to dedicate bike lanes to people who do that? It seems kind of unlikely. And I know people who live downtown who do cycle to get around. And you know what? Even with the bike lanes, it's still stupid dangerous because drivers are bad here. That's the other thing about Chattanooga. We have this odd problem where no one can drive, and I'm one of those people. No one can drive here. We should all be banned from using cars. They're horrible, horrible drivers here. They swerve around. They're not paying attention. They're texting. They're playing Pokemon Go while they're driving about in their giant SUVs because it's the South, and everyone really likes having giant trucks here in the South, and that's fine. But if you're going to have a giant truck, you should probably know how to drive. I think that should be an important part of owning a giant truck, is knowing how to drive. For instance, and I have nothing against people who drive big trucks. They annoy them. They annoy me, right? I'm personally annoyed by big trucks, but I have no reason to be. I freely admit that. It's just I don't like them, right? Like I get annoyed by young adult fiction movies. It doesn't mean that they're bad movies. It just means I get annoyed by them. I don't really have anything particularly against them. It's just I get annoyed by them. Another movie example. I'm really sick of the Marvel movies, but that doesn't mean they're bad. They make tons of bank, so they can't be bad movies. So it's just I get annoyed by them because I'm personally prejudiced against them. It's the same thing with trucks. I'm personally prejudiced against trucks. I recognize that I'm personally prejudiced against trucks. And so I recognize also that you can buy a truck if you want to and drive it about and have fun with it. And that's fine. As long as you don't, almost kill me on the interstate, which it seems most of them do. But to give an example, to show, use the I have a black friend analogy, one of the people who used to work here, Tex, you may remember, drove around a giant truck, and he was a pretty dang good driver. So, yeah, I have nothing against people who drive trucks, to use the I have a black friend excuse. I have a friend who drove trucks, and he liked me. No, I really have nothing against people who drive trucks. I just don't like them. But you have people who drive giant trucks, and think about one road in particular that always drives me nuts is the one near Erlanger, and I forget the name of it right now. But there's one right near Erlanger where there's a lane that used to be a lane, and then they turned it into a bike lane, and it's altogether way too narrow. It's a stupid narrow street, and I don't drive a huge car. I drive a Buick LeSabre from '98. It's not like a Hummer or anything, but it's a larger car, and I feel like I'm really crowded. I feel like the oncoming lane could kill me. And then there's this bike lane that no one uses, it seems like. And if you do see someone using it, you just hate them. So the bike lane thing doesn't seem to really work. Bike lanes suck, Chattanooga, and we need to get rid of them, or at least find another solution. I understand wanting to be a bike-friendly city. That's fine, hip and for the kids and everything, but it seems like deregulating is a better solution than building more crap. How about you deregulate and just let the cyclists ride on the sidewalk or something? It'd be less inconvenient than having them in the middle of the street. And I get like the protected bike lanes everyone hates because they're stupid. They've got the ones downtown. They got these protected bike lanes. And guess what? They block off places where people were parking. Yeah. So you wanted to park downtown. Parking's bad enough already in Chattanooga, right? And that's not the fault of the city or anything. It's just it's a growing city and there's not much space. So there's a lot of places you can't park now because they put these dang bike lanes in. Where am I supposed to park? You put the bike lanes in. Like you're downtown. Oh, I think I'll go to 300. Oh, you can't. Sorry. I'll go to the 300 building downtown to visit my friend. No, you can't because the bike lanes are blocking off this place to park. Sorry. Oh, you wanted to park there at that restaurant you like a lot? No, sorry. We put a bike lane there, so there's nowhere to park for blocks and blocks. It's like they're not thinking. It's like whoever's implementing these things is just not thinking at all. At least this person who's implementing these things probably rarely goes downtown and probably doesn't see the damage it's doing. Like, it seems to me that Andy Burke probably doesn't go downtown that much. At least he doesn't go downtown that much as a regular person, because Andy Burke can park wherever the heck he wants. He's Andy Burke, right? He's the freaking mayor. He can park wherever he wants. I can't park wherever I want. I have to park in places where there's a meter and I got to pay, and I'm not on the city's dime and it costs me money, or I got to go to Republic and it costs me money. I'm not the mayor. So I get annoyed by the bike lane thing, and I think most people do get annoyed by the bike lane thing. And hey, if you're a cyclist who uses the bike lanes, cool. I'm glad you can find some use out of it, because the rest of us can't. And for the rest of us, it's annoying, it's in the way, and it makes the city worse. It really does. It makes the city worse. So maybe, hopefully, next election cycle, we can start getting rid of these bike lanes. Because on Fraser Avenue, we definitely don't need it down to one stupid lane with bikes all over the place and a bunch of hipster kids with their Crosleys on their handlebars whizzing around listening to stick your fists in the air, skinny fists in the air like antennas. We don't need that. Because yes, Chattanooga is a young hip city. And no, we don't need to cater to all those young hip people by putting ridiculous roads in. Because the roads downtown, guess what, are already ridiculous. Think about it. The road layout in Chattanooga is horrible. It's stupid. And there's a good reason. The roads downtown, most of them were put into place when people were still driving horse and buggy. It's an old city. Chattanooga's been around forever, basically. I mean, think that it was an important city in the Civil War. So it's an old city. I mean, Lookout Mountain shows that perfectly. It's an old city, and that's fine. But some of the roads are ancient, like Main Street, Walnut Street. A lot of these roads are ancient streets. Orchard Knob, ancient streets. They're just ancient. So they're designed and they're really narrow and they're designed for horse and buggy. The buildings are built in the same spot where there were buildings in the 1860s because that's Chattanooga. And that adds to the charm, yeah. But does it add to the ease of access? Definitely not. So why in the world would you try to make it worse by putting more bike lanes in and by making the road layout actually worse? That's ridiculous. It's idiotic. And whoever thought of that should probably move to a different city like, Los Angeles or San Francisco, where everyone's really happy with bikes and is fine with ridiculous liberal socialist policies that are probably going to get a lot of people killed because they're going to be in the middle of the street on their bike lane and someone's not going to be looking and someone's going to smash into them with their giant Dodge Durango or whatever. It's stupid. I hate these bike lanes, man. They make me mad. I'm not even kidding. Like, bike lanes, there's not a whole lot of things that make me mad. I'm not the kind of guy who gets mad at much of anything. Like I don't get steamed at much. There are very few things like insulting my family or my friends makes me mad. Insulting me doesn't really, but insulting my friends, my family, my God, that makes me mad, right? The church, that makes me mad. Not the church itself, but people insulting the church makes me mad, right? And even other Christians who aren't in my denomination, like making fun of Baptists, yeah, we do it, but it's not like we mean any harm, right? Like we poke fun at everybody. But when it comes right down to it, if there's some atheist guy who's like, yeah, those Baptist guys are real self-righteous, like that's offensive, dude. Like, I get that you can say whatever you want, but that's offensive, dude. So there's some things that do make me mad, I guess is my point. Like, there's some things that do make me pretty upset. And bike lanes, for some odd reason, are in there with making fun of God, making fun of my family and my friends. For some reason, bike lanes are one of those things. Oh, and idiotic gun policies, I think, is another one. But one thing that does get me kind of steamed, I will admit, one thing that makes me a little bit mad, and by the way, this is Binary, completely forgot. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. Check us out on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, and you can get us on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. That's TuneIn Radio on your smartphone. You can listen to us streaming live on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. And on Bloom Sky, too, you can actually watch the weather on Bloom Sky. And here's a cool trick about Facebook, by the way. Facebook's changed its layout also, by the by. If you go on Facebook.com right now, if you have an account and you look at the chat boxes, they're a little bit different, actually. The layout's just a tad bit different. And I'd say maybe actually a little bit better. The design's been updated. I think it looks pretty cool. The logos don't look as 90s as they used to. It looks a little bit more polished, more OS 10. I kind of like it. It's not bad. I mean, Facebook design decisions have never been particularly great, but the one that they've done with the Messenger on desktop actually does look pretty good. So hats off to Facebook. They spent millions of dollars on a design team, and it seems to have actually worked this time. So good for Facebook. Good for you. Unlike Google, where the Google logo now looks like someone's nephew drew it, like the new Google logo with the material design. It looks like someone's nephew drew it. Like, hey, Billy, draw us a new logo for Daddy's company. And he draws it up. It's like, ooh, that's really good. I'll show the CEO. And he shows the CEO, and the CEO loves it. And that's the new logo for Google. That's how it seems. And it's terrible. I hate the new simplistic design everyone's going for. And there's actually a good reason for it. I mean, not a good reason for me disliking it, but there's a good reason why so many companies are going for simplistic designs in their logos and such. Like Verizon has this awful design now. MasterCard has really simplified its design as well. It looks a lot more 1960s. We're sort of reverting back to that era. Sorry, I've got a bit of allergies going on. We're sort of reverting back to that era of bad design, unfortunately. But what's bringing it about is the international market. You see, MasterCard, Google, Facebook, Verizon, these are all brands that want to expand overseas, right? These brands want to make it big in countries where not only English isn't spoken, but maybe Latin characters aren't used, right? Like China, Hong Kong, they're used to it. But in China and Taiwan, not so much. India, yeah, they speak English in India, but they'd probably rather have something that is more international feeling than British feeling, right? Or maybe you're trying to expand into, say, Russia, or maybe you want Verizon to be in Azerbaijan or Iran or Iraq or any given country, maybe some places in Africa, South Africa, where English is not the main spoken language, and maybe even English characters, Latin characters, aren't the main characters that are used. Well, that's why a lot of these companies are changing their logos around to be very simple, right? Because we're all used to the MasterCard logo because it's something that's been around since forever. It's always been there for us. But if you're trying to introduce it into a new market, they're hoping for something that looks a little bit more simple and it's easy to remember. Like, I remember the MasterCard logo because it looks like two suns setting. But the people overseas are probably going to remember the new MasterCard logo because it looks like two circles and that's easy to remember. You see what I mean? It's not to say that people in other countries are less intelligent. I don't mean that by any means. But as an introduction to the design of MasterCard, it makes sense. Verizon, it makes sense. I just don't like the design. Again, it's a taste thing. I understand why they do it. I just don't like it. And that's on me, not them. But I still don't like simplistic material design OS 10 looking things. It's annoying to me. CNN Money has a new story about Amazon drones that are now ready for takeoff. But guess where? Not here in the US, no, in the UK. The United Kingdom, the land of government control, for some reason is ahead of us now in the drone game. The e-commerce giant Amazon announced on Tuesday that it has formed a partnership with UK aviation regulators that will allow it to test and develop new drone delivery systems, meaning, of course, packages delivered via drone. Meaning, of course, that we are now behind the UK, which is something that really shouldn't happen. The U.S. should never be behind any other country when it comes to development of development of new technologies. We should never be behind. But unfortunately, because of regulation, we are. In addition to allowing drones to fly behind, or rather beyond, a pilot's vision, the UK regulator has also given Amazon permission to test sensors that will allow the drones to avoid obstacles. It also allowed them to conduct trial flights where a person operates multiple drones. Amazon first spoke publicly about its Prime Air delivery service in December of 2013 and actually promised it to be ready by 2015, but that didn't happen because, again, U.S. regulators. The project has been hampered by regulatory hurdles in the U.S. and around the world, too. The company has been able to conduct some test flights, but not with the special permissions granted by the United Kingdom. So here in the U.S., the Amazon Prime Air is probably not going to happen for another long while. I know the FAA is doing its job. I know the FAA is doing what it can to make sure this happens as quickly as possible. But it seems like we've sort of set ourselves up to fail with a lot of these regulations, right? It seems like we've set a lot of our businesses up to fail with some of the regulation that we have, where it takes 10 years for the U.S. to grant permission for a company to do something, where overseas, it's already been happening for a year. That sets us back. That puts us behind the curve. One of the examples that's actually positive is with telephone communications. With telecoms and telcos here in the U.S., our service providers are actually pretty good considering the wide area they have to cover. People make fun of the U.S.'s telecoms because they, have 90% of the U.S. isn't covered by broadband internet. Well, 90% of the U.S. is actually unincorporated. 90% of the U.S. hasn't even been settled yet. So, yeah, there are places in small towns where people live, but it's not worth it for the companies to put lines out there. So the U.S., if you live in a larger city or a larger area, your internet service is probably pretty okay. Yeah, we're not Estonia with the fastest internet in the world, but that's because we're not as small as Estonia, and we don't have the bank to burn on Estonia like Estonia does. It's silly to expect us to be like a small Nordic country or small East European country when we're just not a small Eastern European country or a small Nordic country. We're not set up that way. Our country doesn't work that way, and our people definitely don't work that way. We don't have the European mindset. We have the American frontiersman mindset. We have the American mindset. It's unique to us, and it doesn't make us better or worse than anyone, although it does make us better than some people. It just means that we think differently, and we operate our businesses differently. Unfortunately, this Prime Air really plays perfectly with the American business mindset. It's a new frontier to explore. Americans love that. We love a new frontier to explore. We conquered space, for heaven's sake. But what? The regulators get in the way. that really clashes with the whole American mindset, doesn't it? The idea of regulators, just petty government people getting in the way of business accomplishing something that could help everyone. It seems kind of petty, and it seems kind of un-American. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. Number to call in, 423-800-8949.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
They're soaring worldwide. Prices for gold and silver are soaring worldwide. Rick Davis wants you to take advantage of them. Go to Rick Davis right now. Rick Davis Gold and Silver and get yours today. Your cash, and more cash. Go ahead, take advantage of them. Gold is soaring past $1,350 an ounce. That's $1,350 an ounce. Silver is out of this world too. Buy and sell at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Gold, silver, jewelry, rings, watches. Rick Davis has got what you want. Right on. Cash, and more cash. Rick Davis has got so much cash it's as tall as a billboard. And he wants to stuff it in your pocket. Cash, and more cash. Yours for the asking. Come on in today and watch metals rise up as high as Rick's billboard. Rick Davis Gold and Diamond, 5301 Brainerd Road. You know where it is. Come get your cash, and more cash.
Rubber's tough, but foam rubber is soft. Foam rubber is the star at Stuff It Upholstery, which uses it to revive your couch, your embarrassing easy chair, your boat seat cushions. Stuff It Foam Rubber in Hickson covers Chattanooga and surrounding areas. Don't throw out that favorite easy chair that's grown haggard and barbaric. New life for your seat cushions. Premium auto-grade rubber foam for your restaurant, church, or business. Stuff It Upholstery brings comfort and relief. Go ahead, skid away from flat, dull, and droopy cushions. Relax, restore, revive. When comfort matters, Stuff It. 4608 Hickson Pike, 877-1616. Ask for Larry. That's 877-1616.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business? Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years, a 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock. Call me now, 875-5621.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. Chestnut Street between Martin Luther King Boulevard and 8th Street is going to be under construction until October. The plan is to make it more pedestrian friendly and safer for those pedestrians and more comfortable, according to the Chattanooga Department of Transportation Administrator Blythe Bailey. The project is being paid for by the developers, $850,000. Sidewalks are still open. A blood-soaked fight broke out on Woodside Avenue near Dodds at 4:30 p.m. yesterday. Police say that one woman pulled out a knife and stabbed another woman. Their names have not yet been revealed. The victim was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say investigators are still gathering evidence. If you have any information, you're asked to call 423-698-2525. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Make sure you like us on Facebook and check us out on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. That's TuneIn Radio on your smartphone, and get the Bloom Sky app for your smartphone as well.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Expect partly cloudy, very hot and humid weather out there through the afternoon. Could see a stray shower or storm, but not many. Highs mid and upper 90s tonight. Lows into the lower 70s. For Wednesday, more of the same. Back into the 90s with scattered showers and storms a little more likely late Thursday into Friday. When you only have time for a quick trip, Walgreens is just around the corner with everything from baking needs to cleaning supplies and dairy items. So every trip is a quick trip. Walgreens at the corner of happy and healthy. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
I'm always kind of wary when I hear about a new app that's going to make it so you can talk in secret, or whatever you say won't be monitored by the government, or, oh, it doesn't log anything that you say. I always am a little bit wary of that kind of thing not because I don't like the idea, but because 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you it's probably a honeypot of some sort. By that, I mean it's a ploy. It's a ploy to gather information. Because if you can convince a bunch of people that this particular system or this particular network can't be penetrated or can't be monitored by the government, when in actuality it can, now you're sort of creating an area where now people are going to be talking about anti-government things, or they're going to be talking about drug sales or whatever. I don't really care what they talk about, but government does, right? So if you convince these people that this area can't be monitored by the government, they're going to talk about things that they wouldn't want the government to know about. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think that if that is being exploited by the government, I don't want any part of it. And that's why I have been wary of every app that everyone's ever told me about where, oh, well, yeah, if you use this app, then it's a secret thing and the government can't monitor you on it because it's a secret thing. No, I've never read the source code. What's the source code? That kind of thing. It's just obnoxious to me because people are very easily fooled by apps like these. And Telegram may very well be a very good app, but according to Ars Technica, Telegram's app had a pretty major vulnerability that actually recorded basically everything you said, or at least everything you pasted into it. A bug in the Telegram Messenger app logged anything its users pasted into their chats in its system log on Mac OS, even though they'd opted for the end-to-end encrypted secret mode. The vulnerability was spotted earlier this month by Russian InfoSec operative Kirill Firsov, who directly and publicly challenged Telegram's flamboyant founder-in-chief Pavel Durov about the app's latest security flaw. In an angry reply, Durov then admitted that the vulnerability did exist, but insisted that it only applies to texts that were copy-pasted from the clipboard, and such texts, that's a hard one to say, such texts are open to all other Mac apps anyway. He continues saying App Store apps cannot access system logs starting at 10.12, also true for unsigned apps, but any app can read your clipboard. Durov, in response to Firsov's tweets, promised that he would fix the issue, which doesn't affect other Telegram, Android, or desktop apps. He says, so while copy-paste cannot be secure anyway, I see such logging in the stable release redundant, and we'll see it gone soon. So, yeah, I understand the problem here. When you copy something into your clipboard on your computer, it's now available to all the other apps. Any other application you have installed on your computer could potentially see what you have pasted in or copied into your clipboard. So that angle makes sense. And everything about what happened here makes sense, but I'm still kind of wary of privacy apps like that, especially since Tor was shown to probably be accessible by the government, seeing as it was, kind of made by the government in the first place. I mean, the Navy made Tor, so then why would you think that Tor can't be accessed then by the government if the Navy kind of made it in the first place? It seems like these sorts of things are made almost as a honeypot, and that's phraseology we use when you're talking about an entity that's created in order to gather a certain type of person or a certain type of user. So, for instance, there are networks that are set up that are specifically and intentionally easy to get into, and they're called honeypots because they're super easy to get into, so they're hoping someone will do something illegal and try to log into them and use brute force on them or whatever. That's why you would set up a network like that. And I think that that's partially why Tor is set up, is actually so that people who would do something illegal will log into it and then they can be arrested later, like what happened with Dread Pirate Roberts with the Silk Road. Yeah, the Silk Road was allowed to exist for a little while, but they eventually got the guy. And so now the DEA can say, look, we got a guy and look how great we are and look, you need us to do these things. So it seems like a giant honeypot to me. But I'm also one of the most paranoid people on the planet. So I guess it makes sense that I would think so. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. You can get us on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. That's TuneIn Radio on your smartphone, where you can listen to us streaming live anywhere in the world on the TuneIn Radio app. All you need to do is download it, search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you'll be listening to us anywhere in the world on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. Super easy stuff. We've all got the TuneIn app on our smartphones, respectively, and so we can listen to it pretty much anywhere we are. If I'm on a road trip or if I'm on vacation or what have you, I'm most likely listening to Hot News Talk Radio. Even if I'm outside of the range of our radio signal, I'm never really out of the reach of Hot News Talk Radio, because I can listen to it on the internet anywhere, at basically any location. As long as you've got a smartphone and a data connection, you can listen to it really anywhere. It's pretty amazing stuff. And by the way, you can call in. The number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949 is the number to call in here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. Again, that's 423-800-8949. We were talking just a little bit ago about bike lanes, why they're terrible, especially in Chattanooga. And the UK is now ahead of the United States in the drone industry. Bike lanes are a universally bad idea for Chattanooga anyway. There should not be bike lanes in Chattanooga the way that they are set up now, especially if you are near Erlanger. There's that bike lane that was set up, and it just sort of exists. It's there for a little while, but not really long enough to matter. It doesn't seem like it fixes much of any problems. People are constantly driving in it anyway, treating it like it's a regular car lane, because we are not used to bike lanes, and we'll probably never be used to bike lanes either. Roundabouts were a good idea. Bike lanes are not a good idea, because, again, we're trying to implement this European attitude into a city that is not European by any stretch of the imagination. We are in the South. We're not in the deep South, but we're in the South. This is Tennessee, right? It's not Estonia. It's not Norway. It's not Sweden. It's not Germany, thank goodness. But it is Chattanooga, Tennessee. And Chattanooga, Tennessee does not really react well to progressive European infrastructure, right? Like, I get that bike lanes might work other places, but here they just seem out of place, and they make mostly everyone upset. Yeah, there are some people who ride their bikes in Chattanooga, and they bicycle around and they have fun, and there are kids who do it. I've done it. I'm not even innocent when it comes to the bike lane thing. I have used them before on my bike. I've ridden my bike on the bike lanes. Oh, you thought I didn't ride bikes. You thought I couldn't ride a bicycle. I can, and I do. But I also recognized that the bike lanes are not worth it. Think about it. You've got bike lanes, right? Okay. The bike lanes now take up a lane of traffic that could otherwise be used by cars. The cars are mostly people who are trying to get from point A to point B, just like the bicyclists are. But the cars do so much quicker, right? They travel much more quickly. And they also, most of the time, carry more people. And sometimes you have a person who's going to a very important thing, and some jerk on his bicycle is keeping you from getting to that location, and he's moving really slowly. So why then would you have a bike lane in the middle of the street? It doesn't make any sense. It hinders traffic. And the whole deal with Fraser Avenue, that's the worst idea I've ever heard when it comes to city planning. Putting Fraser Avenue down to one lane per direction of traffic. Terrible idea. Fraser Avenue is jam-packed as it is. Seriously, Fraser Avenue is one of the busier parts of town when it comes to driving, and never mind parking. Fraser Avenue is hard to drive on. It's hard to park on. Fraser Avenue is kind of a mess all the time, and that's not the fault of the city, but it will be if you narrow it down to one lane. Like, I'm starting to think that some of the city planners might actually be psychopathic or maybe sociopathic, because they just don't care, it seems like, about what people want or how people normally operate. I'm starting to wonder if they actually ever drive downtown. It's insane, the whole bike lane thing. And everyone's suddenly just fixated on this idea of bike lanes downtown, not recognizing that it's one of the worst ideas I've ever heard, and a lot of people have ever heard too. Bike lanes are terrible. Why would you do that? It's like, well, it promotes people going outdoors. It promotes a greener environment. Listen, forget the environment for 2 seconds here. We're talking about people going to businesses, right? Spending money, which is what you want in Chattanooga. You want people to spend as much money as possible. That's how a city grows, because they spend money and that money goes into taxes, which allows them to do stupid projects like bike lanes. So how about don't do the bike lanes and just focus on people spending money, which will naturally happen if you don't involve yourself as a government. Don't involve government in things, and people are more likely to spend more money. Like the whole Thrive 2055 thing. They're like, oh, we're going to make it a pretty city and it's going to look nice. And, I'll be out of office by the time it's done, but at least it'll look nice and it'll be part of my legacy, and I can write an autobiography and make millions of dollars later on. Yeah, good for you, buddy. But for the rest of us, we're going to have an inefficient city that's not going to run nearly as well. It's going to be inconvenient to drive basically anywhere. And it's starting to make me think that maybe the people who are planning these things actually don't like cars anyway. And guess what? In the South, especially the South, we like cars. We like driving cars. We don't like bikes. I mean, we like bikes to ride them around. Yeah, it's fun, but we don't like them to be the focal point of how you drive, how you commute around. It's stupid. The whole thing is stupid. And I don't think the people who are trying to plan it are dumb. I just think that they have their hearts and minds in totally the wrong place. It's not going to work. It's going to make people adverse to the city, and it's not going to attract people to the city, I guarantee you. Because when I see, oh, we're a bike-centric city, I think, oh, great, a bunch of a bunch of hippie losers, right? There's hipsters and there's hippies. I get them all muddled into one. Well, a Florida judge says that Bitcoins are not currency, and so state laws don't apply. State money laws do not apply to Bitcoin in the state of Florida. According to Ars Seneca, a Florida judge decided in favor of a Bitcoin vendor charged with violating a local money laundering law because, she found, the cryptocurrency is not money as defined under state law, saying the Florida legislature may choose to adopt statutes regulating virtual currency in the future. So hopefully they don't do that, but they might do that at some point. Miami-Dade Circuit Judge Teresa Mary Pooler wrote in her Monday opinion, saying that at this time, however, attempting to fit the sale of a Bitcoin into a statutory scheme regulating money services businesses is like fitting a square peg into a round hole. According to her 8-page opinion, a Miami police detective began investigating local Bitcoin sales in the area in 2013 after learning more about it from a local and federal task force led by the Secret Service. Detective Ricardo Arias then started looking at postings on localbitcoins.com, a website where people can arrange in-person Bitcoin sales for cash, often anonymously. One vendor, Michael Hack, offered 24-hour availability and only wanted to meet in public places, which Arias thought might be suspicious. Well, maybe it's for his own safety, but we'll just forget about that because if you're a cop, everything is suspicious. On December the 4th, 2013, Arias, working undercover, arranged to meet Michael Hack, who turned out to be a man named Michel Espinoza at a Miami cafe. Espinoza sold him 0.4 Bitcoins for $500 in cash. A month later, Arias again arranged a second deal, buying 1 Bitcoin for $1,000. According to the judge's summary, at this meeting, Arias, working still undercover, told the vendor that he was interested in buying stolen credit card numbers from Russians and would be using the Bitcoins to pay for them. Arias asked Espinoza if he'd accept stolen credit card numbers as payment, and Espinoza said that he would think about it. Then, after arranging a third transaction, Arias tried to set up a large buy of $30,000 worth of Bitcoins, and Arias produced a flash roll of hundreds as a way to convince Espinoza, and they went through this whole sting operation, and in the end of the case, it was determined that Mr. Espinoza didn't really do anything wrong, and Bitcoin is not money, so it can't actually be money laundering. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting decision that was made there by that judge, and it's going to set a precedent for now. That's the thing. It's going to set precedent for now, but later down the line, there's probably going to be some Florida state law that'll say Bitcoin is illegal in Florida because Florida always has ridiculous laws on different things. Like, did you know that in the state of Tennessee, it is legal to hunt whales as long as you're shooting it from a moving car? You know, there's different weird little rules that are in different states that just don't make any sense. Like, there are things that are illegal to buy in Alabama that you can buy everywhere else. There are things that are illegal in Georgia that are legal everywhere else. Like, for instance, it was illegal for the longest time in Georgia to have aerial fireworks. You can now, but for the longest time, you couldn't. And I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's a case of some kid did something dumb, so the rest of us have to pay for it. You know, like how often does that happen? There's someone who gets in some horrible accident, and so now the rest of us can't have any fun because someone had something horrible happen to them. Like, how many accidents are there with, say, ATVs, right? Like bush hogs. How many accidents are there with those things? Hundreds, probably every year, or maybe less than that, but there are a lot every year. Because I know every month or so you see one in the news about someone who was run over by one, and it's a big tragedy. And it's sad every time it happens, but should there be extra regulation on them because of that? No, it's not going to fix anything. You know, it's just going to be, well, it'll happen anyway. And they'll say, well, it was illegal, and they'll slap the parents now with a fine for allowing someone under 18 on a bush hog or some ridiculous thing like that. You know, regulation doesn't really fix much of anything most of the time. I say most of the time because I'm sure there's some example of regulation fixing something that I'm just not aware of. And as soon as I'm made aware of it, I'll tell you, but there might be some example somewhere. Well, everyone's excited about SpaceX and about the reusable rockets that Elon Musk has been sending up. That's a rocket that goes into space and then lands again, and it can be reused. And it sounds very cost effective, and it sounds like a great idea. Well, apparently, according to some, the market doesn't justify reusable launchers, and expendable rockets might actually be the way to go, according to some makers of some rockets who, you know, maybe they make disposable rockets, maybe they don't. The U.S. government and some of its major aerospace contractors have tried to tackle the problem of reusable rockets and spacecraft for several decades, from the DCX to the space shuttle, with mixed success. Even after spending hundreds of billions of dollars on these technologies in development and flight costs, neither the government nor its traditional aerospace contractors have mastered the art of flying vehicles to space, recovering them, and then turning them around for new missions quickly and at low cost. That's the big kicker there. Even if you can't do it quickly, if you can do it at low cost, it's okay. But quickly and low cost, that's the kicker there. If you can do that, you've basically conquered the whole space race that we have now. The NEO space race is which company can affordably get to space quickly and with reusable rockets. That's sort of the new space race. It's not between countries, it's between companies, where different companies are trying to come up with the best solution for putting a rocket up into space and reusing it so that the ISS can maintain its supply of stuff, knickknacks, saltines, I guess. During the last half year, however, both SpaceX and Blue Origin have begun to demonstrate that they have these capabilities. Although much work remains to be done, Blue Origin has already flown a suborbital rocket 4 times in relatively short order with low turnaround costs, and they've even put out satellites while doing it. And SpaceX has recovered 5 orbital rockets at land and sea and expects to refly at least one of them later this year. Monday evening in Salt Lake City, some aerospace industry officials sat down to discuss this new development. The panel at an American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics Forum on Propulsion had a provocative title, which was Launch Vehicle Reusability, Holy Grail, Chasing Our Tail, or Somewhere in Between. And yeah, so there's still some debate over whether or not the whole reusable rocket thing is a meme or not. Right? Like, the whole reusable rocket thing sounds like a great idea, but is it in the long run? And I'm not an aerospace engineer. I'm not a physicist. I'm not really qualified to build a rocket yet. I'm working on it. But here's the thing. If the market determines that something is not the right product, then it's not, right? Like, the reusable rocket thing might end up being the Betamax of the space race, right? It might end up being the Betamax. And some company will come in with the VHS and totally ruin the whole Betamax that is potentially these reusable rockets. And that's kind of what I think Elon Musk might be worried about. Some company coming in and sort of taking all the glory and ending up being the launch vehicle that NASA uses, and it's done by a private company, and that private company makes billions and billions of dollars. That could very well happen. And I think the people who are making these reusable rockets are sort of sweating over that. But we'll have to wait and see, because I hope that Blue Origin and SpaceX, I hope that they are not the Betamax of the space race, right? Where with Betamax, you had the tape for video that was technically much better than VHS, but VHS was cheaper, and so it took off. And maybe that'll end up happening with SpaceX, where SpaceX might have the technically better rocket, and Blue Origin might have the technically better rocket, but it's too expensive and it doesn't do enough at that price point compared to the alternative. And that may very well end up happening with some company coming out with something, or even NASA developing something that ends up being the standard launch vehicle for the rest of forever. That could, unfortunately, for SpaceX and Blue Origin, very well happen. And you have to not get wrapped up in brand loyalty with this. Because, yeah, I like SpaceX as a company. Yeah, I think Elon Musk is a genius. But if something better comes out that's more cost effective, you have to accept that the industry and the market are going to go to that, because that's how the market works. The market doesn't have time for brand loyalty, especially when it comes to the space race, which we are in now. It's the new space race, essentially. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. Check us out on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and, of course, get the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. You can listen to us streaming live anywhere on the world. Colin Cowherd coming up next.